Hey everyone, this is Cary and Matt Dernlan with the podcast The Way, presented by RUDIS. I hope you all had a good week, and Matt and I are back. Matt, how'd your week go?
It's going good, man. You know, it's a little bit more. I got a hectic week, but nothing compared to you. You're in the middle of the season. You're moving houses.
Yeah.
Nothing like moving houses in the middle of the season, right?
You see my background here. Yeah, so we moved it. Well, we bought in December, and then I couldn't move in December. Christmas came, season's here, and then so finally transitioned down, which is why you see I don't have my studio setting back here, but it's good, you know, and I'm a little closer to Campbell. It's making my job easier, making my time with the family easier, and I think it's been good all around for everyone in the household, and so it's good. And you've been busy trying to hire new people, huh?
Yeah, I mean, turning into the new year, I mean, we're looking to. I mean, we're growing leaps and bounds. I mean, these are all great problems. I mean, we're really blessed a bit with what we're doing, and so we're looking to hire a bunch of new salespeople and some other another staff around a bunch of other staff around the business. So yeah, things are booming. Things are going good.
Yeah, good. Well, hey, I think you and I talked about this before, and we might have covered it in different podcasts. But the question I always get is peaking, and you know, how do you peak? And you always kind of have a plan as a coach. I think you had a plan when you were coaching, and we always kind of start with a plan. But peaking is like I always feel like it's gauging my guys. You know, I'd like to say, yeah, this is the time frame, and every coach talks about the time frame of the practices are getting shorter, and they're getting they're more intense, but it's a shorter time frame, and we want everybody. But to some extent, that's where your guys are at as well. So I would say my peaking from the time I started at Campbell has changed in how we handle the end of the year. And, you know, I feel like with the guys I have now, it is making sure it's intense. It is making sure that the quality is good and as perfect as it can be, and it can be sharp. And then the other part is the mental side. If I go back, I think I do more talking to my guys than I've ever done in the years past, because I feel like I've got the right horses in the stable, and it's making sure those guys mentally are on top of things. And they know at this point in the year, we have to shorten and be sharp, and rest is important. Sleep is important. Nutrition is important, you know, and I heard a good talk the other day. Actually, it was I don't know if you saw it, was Dresser after the Oklahoma State match, and I watched a lot of videos of everybody, and just to find something different. And one of the things he talked about was micromanagement, and he was talking about how he felt like he needed to micromanage his team again, where they were at and the mistakes they had made, and and he said it's these small details are adding up, and they're not paying attention to it. And he's exactly right. Like, it's all those small things. And that's what I tell my guys. They're so small, but you let 1, 2, before you know it, 10 of those things go by, and it's going to affect the process. So right now we can't have, as much as it's the physical side of training and wrestling, the academic side, the social life, everything has to be balanced, and the details have to be right.
Yeah. I always thought a big part of peaking was talking it into existence. And by that, I mean, you start at the beginning of the year, and you're talking about all the things that you have to do, what your athletes, the controllables. We've mentioned it before, weight management, rest, staying on top of your grades, good social decisions. Those are all the things that you talk about at the beginning of the year, and you talk about them weekly, monthly, and those are the things that the guys have to take ownership of. If they don't take ownership of those, it doesn't really matter how well you actually train the guys. And that's what I would always tell my guys about, like, hey, we've got the training plan in place. It starts today. For us to peak at the right time, it's critical that you guys take ownership of these things that are in your control. So the training, when it's time to switch our training and really peak you out, you're prepared for that. And not only do you speak it into existence on a daily and weekly basis, but I always thought the peaking started with your training at the beginning of the year too. Like, I start off at this rate, and gradually I'm introducing off days, active recovery days. And again, this is where you speak to your guys about it. Like, hey, what are we doing on these active recovery days? Okay, yeah, we're not on the mats, but we're doing something to actively recovering our bodies. So you're gaining little inches and gaining incrementally with those rest days, as long as you're doing the proper things with, we did similar things, I'm sure, like you guys, hot, cold tubs. I did hot yoga. I did different things to recover the guys' bodies. So as long as they were doing that, once we got to this point of the year, and I think typically when you turn the page into February, that's where you would start adjusting. And I would taper down through the year from December to January into February. It was leading up to that point. But so I think a lot of people confuse peaking, like all of a sudden you just turn the chapter in the book and you do something completely different. And for me, it was always a gradual progression into the peaking phase, right?
Yeah, that's exactly how I would approach it too. Like I said, you can't have an exact science because you're always looking at your team too, and you might have a different team at a certain time of year, and you might have a different set of guys. Like, I'm almost through my first recruiting class here at Campbell, right? So that guy has changed each and every year, and so the end of my year has changed because I have better guys. They've been built up over time. Technically, mentally, physically, they're handling more than they did as a freshman, right? They're mentally stronger than they were as a freshman. And so it changes. But like some of the things you said right there on the actual physical side of getting ready, we're getting shorter. Not yet. We're still in January, but we're going to start rolling into that phase where it's going to come in. It's going to be more precise in the fundamental areas. It's going to be shorter drill sessions. I'm going to give them time where they have 15 to 20 minutes. What areas do you want to work in? The live wrestling is going to become more situational in terms of down by 1, 30 seconds on the clock, down by 2, 30 seconds on the clock. And what areas are we going to go to? Because we know some guys at the end of the year are going to, rise up. There's going to be people that we saw, during the year that maybe we beat or we lost to by point. They may get better or they may get worse depending on how they handle the pressure. And the one part I hate about talking about the end of the year is, like I always say, like, it's the end of the year. We know it for fans. For the fan, it is a big deal. But if you are actually in the fire right now, your wrestling should not change. It's the biggest mistake that anybody makes in the year. Anxiety sets in and pressure sets in. It says now all of a sudden everything counts. And what I always say is every bout is just as important as the last bout you wrestled and moving into the next one. And that's how you have to approach the sport. And that'll allow you to control your anxiety and you won't put everything focused in on March, and so I don't want to see guys make that mistake. And that'll be a lot of our when we vocalize things, that's how we'll talk about it. We're still perfecting our craft and getting better at it. And then the lifts will become more circuit training. It won't be those long, heavy days. It'll be a short, heavy, explosive day or a circuit train to make sure their muscles are ready. And the truth is, Matt, I think they're always ready. They need to be doing those workouts that make them feel mentally even more ready and more prepped to go. And I think guys, athletes, they expect a change too. They expect that change because they want to feel like they're short and sharp and ready to rock when they get out there. And so there will be the physical side, but I think if anything, it's more how you start talking to them. Don't do what everybody tends to do. And hey, we're getting ready. It's coming. You start doing that. Yep. Then you're going to have guys freak out. It is keep doing what we're doing. We've gotten better each week. You got to keep getting better each week, and you don't change. From the first bout of the year, you got better until here we're at, and we're just going to keep perfecting it and performing.
Yeah, and I guess one of the things that just sparked a question in my mind, talking about this is the first full phase. You've taken guys through a whole cycle in the program, and I know we've talked about this before. Sometimes when you head into the peaking phase with young guys coming out of high school for the first time, they're freaked out that you're doing less than they did in high school at this time. The typical guy, we've talked about this in high school. You're getting ready for the sectional tournament, district tournament, state tournament. All of a sudden guys are like, I got to practice 3 times a day. I got to go to the neighboring high school or meet up with all my guys in the district. And they just change everything up and they train even harder. And and that was a thing that with younger guys, in my career, they had trouble wrapping their mind around that. They're like, Coach, what do you mean we're only practicing 45 minutes, less than an hour? We're just in and out. We're blowing it out. And they're like, that's it? I'm like, yeah, that is. Now is the time. You hear it all the time. Trust the process. This is the culmination of the process. And if you're believing in it, and if you're believing in what we're saying and what we're doing, then yes. I mean, you should love this. It's all about, for me, it's all about excitement too, right? If you're feeling good, you're going to wrestle good.
Right. That's anxiety. Like, and that's when you realize you have a pretty good group of guys. Like, we have a few guys that, as a staff, we have to sit there and say, "Stop! Get out of the room! What are you doing?" And I have a few guys like that where the match. The one thing we talked about, and we talked earlier in the year, like, we made some mistakes in our first duel of the year where guys were too fired up and too hyped up, and they wrestled the match 2 hours before we even competed, mentally and physically, in their warm up and their weight cutting drill session. And we talked about it, and we didn't repeat that mistake. But now I see guys getting fired up to compete again, but they're getting, our one guy, I'm like, it's an hour and a half before he wrestles, and he's in there pacing in the room with this face. I'm like, what are you doing? Why are you doing this right now? Get off your feet, sit down, take your shoes off, relax. You an hour and a half of walking around is not going to help you. How long does it take you to get warmed up? And we tell him, like, what's your number? And one of our guys is 32 minutes. I need 32 minutes of this specifically. I'm like, then okay, time it so your warm up is done, in 32 minutes, and then you got a 5-minute sit down and recovery, and then go out and wrestle. Not an hour and a half before. And that's back to the anxiety that guys get at the end of the year, because it's what they've heard their whole life from whether it was little league football or little league baseball, whatever. Everybody talks about the end of the year. Right. And everything, comes to a peak, and as an athlete, you can't think about it like that. You have to just keep approaching the training, and you're right. Getting shorter can freak some guys out. But once you get accustomed to it, and I think for the most part, I got guys that are accustomed to it. The good thing is I have older guys now that get it, and it's really helped my younger guys, some of the freshmen I got in the lineup. And then I think when I lose these seniors, I should have some good carryover to the process. They had some good upperclassmen to learn from, and before those guys got out of there and took some beatings from and some drill sessions from and learned how to get ready to go.
Yeah, I think that's probably you brought something up that I thought it was really important to the peaking process that not many people talk about, is the individual process of preparation for your performance and for your match. By that, I mean, I think throughout the year, and I think once you get a couple years under your belt and you're upperclassmen, it's like at this point when the season starts, it's like riding a bike. They know how to prepare. They know what it looks like after a 1 hour weigh-in, after a 2 hour weigh-in, when they need to get warmed up, how they need to get ready for a tournament, for a dual meet. And I think that's an important part heading into the conference championship, heading into the NCAA tournaments. Like when you get into these bigger, different venues, it's critical that you maintain the same process. Like, okay, my weigh-ins, my weight cut looks like this before weigh-ins. My warm-up looks like this. This is what I need to put in my body. And it's one of those things where you kind of have to be vigilant as a staff that your guys don't want to deviate what they've done in their preparations for competition every year too. Because you see guys doing those different things. They want to treat it different. And it's not. It's just wrestling. And this is the fun stuff. It's really, for me, is like I had trouble getting hyped for in-season matches. Competition was always competition. I got excited, but it wasn't what I got up for. It was the postseason. And I was like, it was always fun for me. And I treated it as such. And maybe I was fortunate because I had a father that kind of grasped it. And he had a healthy approach to competition, and we wanted to win, and we had big goals. But at the end of the day, it was just we weren't going to be better just because we won a title or got on the podium or something. It didn't define us or make us a better person. It was another competition. And so I think that's the other thing. There's never a worse scenario, and I'm sure you've been through it, Cary. I've done it a couple of times where you felt that your preparation was perfect, and then guys deviate from the game plan when it comes to game time. and match day or championship day. And you're like, what the heck are you doing, man? Like,
Yeah.
why are you changing this up? Just follow the script at this point. It's a script.
It's going to happen all the time at the end of the year with somebody who's performed all season long and has been solid. All of a sudden will think they need to change things. Or what they're doing, they got to do it even. Like I said, I always heard a good story from Craig Turnbull when he was the head coach of West Virginia. Dean Morrison was an NCAA champ, was always highly ranked going into the NCAA tournament, and he always fell flat at March. And they had a team psychologist, and he would always ask Dean, well, what's the issue? He goes, and basically he thought Dean had a very explosive double leg. It was his main attack. And he felt like he just had to be better at it. Like the guys he was beating all year, they weren't the guys at the NCAA tournament when they were going to be a mix of those guys. And that was his anxiety. And he just started all of a sudden changing his thinking. And he would just, maybe focus in on the double too hard and shoot it so hard that he made mistakes and he just started second guessing. And he's like, you've won. You're the number one ranked guy in the country. You've been here, 2 times now, and you're going into the NCAA tournament. There's no need to change what you've been doing. And I guess that conversation really helped Dean, because that's the year he won the NCAA tournament. And I've always used that story because I thought that made a lot of sense. I heard a good thing. It was actually tonight. Thomas Gilman's in town, and he stopped in, and he dates my assistant coach's Mike Evans dates his sister, and they're engaged, and so he stopped in to see Mike, and he talked to my team, and it was a short speech. It was like 3 minutes, and he didn't need to say any more, because once you make your point, you make your point. You need, sometimes people feel like it has to be long and drawn out. And he said, here's the rule that I live by is I pass the baton to Thomas Gilman every night. And he goes, what I mean by that is every day I work as hard as I can. So tomorrow, when I pass the baton to the new Thomas Gilman, who dies at midnight and wakes up at 12:01, the new guy, his day is easier. And that comes back to details. Like if it's academics and you got a 15-page paper due, and you say, well, I'll put it off to the morning. Well, you've passed it to the new guy tomorrow morning. Where if you maybe suck it up and grind it out and you get it done that evening, when you wake up tomorrow, that new guy doesn't have that paper hanging over his head, right? You didn't push and I really liked that analogy and that concept. And we've all heard different speeches, right? Different things. And sometimes somebody can say something a little different. So I did say I was going to steal that from him and use it. So I'm using it right now. But passing the baton, I thought was a very, very good way to approach your team and your training, and do everything you can the day before to be ready. And then anxiety, let it out, let it go, because tomorrow's a brand new guy and a brand new person. And, the training's right. You just keep passing the baton daily and getting better daily, and nothing should change, because that's always should be your approach anyway. Is every bout is no more important than the last one you wrestled. It's perfecting the craft.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's a perfect way to wrap up this episode.
Yeah, absolutely.
So,
but well, hey Matt, man, we'll have a good week, and hopefully next time you see me, I'll be back in the studio here, not sitting behind my blinds and stuff in front of my blinds. But
all right,
man. Well, good talking, and I'll talk to you next week.
Okay, we'll see you, Cary.